Hello, and welcome back to the series where we're gonna rank the best roller coasters in each state of United States of America. And today I just felt like doing Minnesota, I don't know why. And overall, Minnesota is actually home to some gem roller coasters. And this American state is mainly home to two major parks. We have Valleyfair and Nickelodeon Universe. So now let's see which of these parks has the best coaster lineup. And let me know in the comments which coaster you think is number one in Minnesota. And I've collected 10 of the best roller coasters in Minnesota, so let's go. And now coming in at spot number 10, we got Mad Mouse at Valleyfair. And this small family roller coaster is actually a very rare wild mouse coaster made by Aerodynamics. And we all know that Aerodynamics was actually the pioneers in terms of roller coaster construction, but their wild mouse models weren't really the best. And this family coaster overall just offers a lackluster ride experience. The sharp turns aren't really that sharp. The pacing is really show on this wild mouse. But lucky for this roller coaster, it has one or two airtime pops that I could feel a bit of airtime on. And another positive about this roller coaster is the duration. It is quite long, but unfortunately on top of a lackluster ride experience with a slow pacing, this capacity on this coaster is so horrible. So now let's move on to some better coasters. And now coming in at spot number 9, we got Pepsi Orange Streak at Nickelodeon Universe. And now we've actually moved over to Nickelodeon Universe for another family coaster. And I don't even know what coaster is the most boring. Is it the Wild Mouse or this coaster? And I know it's a family coaster of course, but the forces are just so mild that I could even sleep in this coaster. But in terms of capacity, this Sierra Rise family roller coaster really has a very lengthy train. And even though the ride experience is very lackluster on this roller coaster, it is more smooth than the Wild Mouse, and on top of that you have an awesome scenery. The best thing about Pepsi Orange Streak is of course traveling over the scenery at Nickelodeon Universe. It looks so beautiful, and that's why all the kids love this coaster. The forces are very mild and they get a brand new perspective of this park. And if you really want to experience a bit of force on this roller coaster, just a bit, please sit in the front row or back row. And now coming in at spot number 8, we got Avatar Airbender. And now we're actually staying at Nickelodeon Universe for this intimate half-pipe coaster model. But unfortunately for me, I can't really ride this coaster model because it just goes back and forth. And just like the Viking ship flat rides, I really get dizzy. And then my whole day is destroyed because I'm on the edge of puking. But these intimate half pipes do offer a bit more thrill because you have these spinning trains. And even though this roller coaster just goes back and forth, it still offers some variation because of the spinning seats. And lucky for the riders, you can actually feel some airtime pops on the top of these small stalls. So overall, what can we really say? These intimate half pipes are just alright. So let's move on to the next coaster. And now coming in at spot number 7, we got High Roller at Valleyfair. High Roller is overall a very old wooden roller coaster, but I think it offered a bit more than I expected. This coaster overall offered a fun ride experience. You had a few airtime moments, but it weren't really enough. And in terms of comfort, you had a decent amount of rattle, but what can you really expect from an old wooden roller coaster? But High Roller overall didn't really offer bone-crushing roughness, so that's great. I've tried many newer roller coasters, both wooden and steel roller coasters, that were way more rough than this ride. But unfortunately, the whole ride experience on High Roller was a bit short, and this white wooden roller coaster really had some dead spots. It was really quite slow, and overall it's just alright. But let's move on to the next coaster. And now coming in at spot number 6, we got the Fairly Odd coaster at Nickelodeon Universe. And to be honest, I don't really know what's fairly odd about this roller coaster, because you got a family ride and it's a Gerstlauer spinning coaster. And overall you have a decent family roller coaster with a lot of spinning, many high-speed twists and turns, and a very lengthy layout. And you can experience a decent amount of rattle on this not so odd roller coaster, but it's alright. And overall this coaster is yet another capacity nightmare, but this ride also has non-stop spinning. The first drop is surprisingly intense, and the intensity is just maintained through the whole ride experience. And overall I just really enjoy these spinning roller coasters, and this one is a fine example. Gerstlauer really knows how to create these coaster models, and being built where it is, this roller coaster really has a lengthy ride experience with tons of near misses. And just like Pepsi Orange Streak, this roller coaster really gives you a new view of this park. And to be honest, this is the first coaster on the list where I would actually go around for a re-ride. So let's move on to another great coaster. And coming in at spot number 5, we got SpongeBob SquarePants Rock Bottom Plunge at Nickelodeon Universe. And whoa, that was a very long name for a roller coaster. And I actually think if you started saying the name of this roller coaster going down the first drop, you won't be finished until the ride experience is done. But overall, this SpongeBob roller coaster is actually a Gerstlauer Eurofighter. And this roller coaster is of course a great pick for a thrill ride in this indoor park, because you know Gerstlauer are the kings of small ride areas and thrill coasters. So of course you got a quite short and very punchy Gerstlauer layout overall. You of course start out great with a very punchy beyond vertical drop into a small airtime hill and then a forceful overbank turn. After that the coaster travels into a very hang time filled 0G roll, and after that the coaster unfortunately hits the trim brakes, but that's for capacity reasons only. And these last turns are just filler elements for the train to go to the station yet again. But unfortunately, because SpongeBob has chosen the Gerstlauer Eurofighter, you have these uncomfortable roller coaster trains with the over the shoulder restraints, and on top of that the ride layout is quite rattly. But the coaster of course redeems itself for the great start. And now coming in at spot number 4, we got Excalibur at Valleyfair. And now we finally move up to these coasters I would say are good. And I would overall describe Excalibur as an Aero Mine Train on steroids. And this coaster model is just a much more intensified version of the Aero Mine Trains, you know, the family coasters. And Excalibur is actually a hybrid roller coaster by Aerodynamics made in 1989 because it features wooden structure and steel track, of course. And overall, Excalibur just offers a great ride layer with a lot of intensity. The best elements on Excalibur for me is the great first drop, especially in the back row, and then you have this twisted S-hill with a lot of eject airtime. And I also think that the intensity of this ride experience is strengthened because this roller coaster isn't that comfortable to ride, and Excalibur is of course an old Aero roller coaster from 1989, so it's a bit janky and rough, but personally for me the roughness is bearable. And I've also seen someone on Captain Coaster say that this is an Aero Mega Light, and that's the funny description. And you really have to consider where you sit on this roller coaster because the back row is way more rough than the front row. So let's move on to the next coaster. We've made it to top 3 now. And now coming in at spot number 3, we got Steel Venom at Valleyfair. And lucky for Valleyfair, they take spot number 3 on this coaster list. And Steel Venom is actually an impulse roller coaster model by Intamin, and we haven't seen those for a while. And let's shortly say rest in peace Cedar Point. And I really overall like this weird and very bizarre coaster model because the launches are sharp and you have this inverted coaster train. And Steel Venom actually features a twisted spike stall, and then in the end you also have a vertical spike stall. And Steel Venom actually features this holding brake on the vertical spike stall, and it's just awesome. The stomach dropping experience is great, and especially if you sit in the front row of this roller coaster, this twisted spike stall is just awesome. It offers strong laterals and airtime, and it's also awesome to see that Intamin has actually revived this coaster model by building one in Asia. Let's move on to spot number 2. And now coming in at spot number 2, we got Wild Thing at Valleyfair. And there's really no surprise, Valleyfair yet again takes spot number 2 with this awesome Morgan Hyper coaster. And this is of course the biggest roller coaster in Minnesota, standing 207 feet and reaching 75 miles per hour. And on top of that you have a very lengthy layer, but I wouldn't call it Wild Thing because it isn't really a wild roller coaster. Unfortunately, Wild Thing just offers some very drawn out moments I would call a bit of a dead spot. But this coaster overall just offers some great airtime moments, and in the end you have a lot of these, and these are just great. And overall these Morgan Hyper coasters just offers a very lengthy and a very smooth ride experience, and Wild Thing is no exception. And the best elements for me on Wild Thing is the great first drop and then the strong floater airtime hill after. And now coming in at spot number 1, we got Renegade at Valleyfair. And surprisingly, Valleyfair actually takes the best 4 spots on my list. And Renegade overall is just a great mid-sized GCI wooden roller coaster. And I was really hoping for this roller coaster to be called the Wild Thing because this coaster layout really is wild. And Renegade really has a very weird first drop where it first bangs to the right and then to the left. And Renegade overall just features a very high-paced roller coaster layout with many low to the ground elements with twists and turns, and then the typical floater airtime hills which you experience on these GCI wooden roller coasters. And overall I would say that Renegade is a high-tier GCI coaster. And you have to remember that Renegade has a bit of rattle, so it isn't really the smoothest GCI, but that only adds to the intensity of this ride experience. And I actually think there are 1 or 2 ejector spots on this roller coaster, and that's quite rare for a GCI coaster in my opinion. And now we've finally made it to the end of this video. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Have I missed some roller coasters? Please let me know in the comments, and please feel free to give it a subscription, a like, or something else to support the channel. And to the end of the day, I'm always gonna say I can't really speak English, but bye bye.